On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, Full Stroke Commander, the Elvis Collector Plate of Guns, Oliver Anthony in the NFL, and Bovine Rape Kit. Okay, welcome back everybody. This is episode 315 of the John 1911 podcast. Today is Friday, September 1st, 2023, and it is, looking at the watch, it's a little bit after 6 o'clock. We have been a little bit slow getting podcasts out, and I apologize for that. Things have been extremely busy around here, and I've had a difficult time rustling the boys up, so it was, you get me today. It's a solo episode, and I just want to say, this isn't in a rundown, just off the top of my head. So I noticed yesterday when I went out that it was about 65, 67 degrees here in Ohio. And, you know, all summer, all we see is everything that happens with the weather is a crisis, okay? Everything's a crisis, you know. Oh my God, why is it so hot? Why does this keep happening? You know, and then sure enough, August 31st, September 1st, almost September 1st, temperature drops, you know, instead of 99, 100 degrees, temperature drops over 30 degrees. And while it will still get hot here in September, here in the Ohio Valley, you know, September is the beginning of it not being summer. And, you know, in the old days, it wasn't climate change. We just used to call this the dog days of summer, you know, like it's just what it was. And now everything is a crisis, you know. Somebody burns up, you know, half of an island in Hawaii and somehow it's climate change. And it's like, that's not climate change. That's, you know, poor forestry management, invasive grass species, you know, and the power company not turning shit off. And then you get the bureaucratic water guy who doesn't want to release water to mutual aid to the fire department over there because of some, you know, our water is sacred. We got to keep it for our sacred purposes, not give it to the fire department. And then, you know, I guess there's been some debate about possibly people were trying to leave the town when the fire broke out and the police were stopping them because they were saying there's down power lines out there and you can't go out there. And so the people that basically said, fuck you, and went around the roadblock and left town, they survived. And a lot of people they had to do that didn't do that, follow the rules, you know, they burned up or had to fight for their lives, you know, against the flames. And so none of this is climate change. None of this is, you know, this world-changing event. Every single one of these problems, you can boil it down to stupid human tricks. You know, it's you unfortunately, the more control you give to other people, you know, then the more removed they are from everyday life, the more that they're going to screw everything up. And so, yeah, you know, it gets really hot in August. It gets hot, you know, at the John 911 range. It gets hot in the tractor. It gets hot, you know, shooting the guns and all of that. And, you know, it was super hot in, you know, in the 70s, and it was super hot earlier. And, you know, I'm just going to make this one. I'm going to get off this. I'm just going to get off this. So there was, I can't remember where it was, but they're talking about, you know, it's a news broadcast, and somebody's making the point that, you know, almost in breathless tones, breathless coverage, like, oh my God, you know, it's whatever, some degrees, and this is the first, this is a record, it's a record-breaking temperature, we have to do something, and, you know, we haven't been this hot since 1898, and, you know, it's like, oh my God, you know, you can see where, you know, people, it's this, everything is a crisis, but if you think about things logically, and you hear stories like that, like this is the hottest it's been since 1904. Ask yourself this question. The fuck was going on in 1898 that it was so goddamn hot? Because it wasn't all the cars. It wasn't all the coal plants. You know, it wasn't all the greenhouse gases. Well, so what was it? You see what I mean? You know, or maybe you don't. So anyway, we're not going to, you know, You can tell I'm in a mood. I'm not in a mood, but I realize I sound like I'm in a mood. So let's go ahead and get this mood. Let's get this mood going. How do I say this? This is the John 1911 podcast is a pretty diverse. We're firearms people, but we cover a lot of different things, and we also reach because of the topics that we cover. We reach a wide array of people, and it's becoming shocking and surprising. How that happens, and so it's come to our attention that more and more people that listen to us are interested in maybe, reaching out and doing some kind of, collab, I guess, if you're a kid today, like put you on or sponsorship, like FCC would call it sponsorship. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to save everybody a bunch of time. Okay. Before you reach out, like, hey, look, hey, and I'm not, if you want to reach out and we don't come to an agreement, or if you want to reach out, I don't want you to feel like that or whatever you send to me an email, that I'm going to turn around and blast it on the internet. I'm not going to do that. But I'm just going to say this, okay? Because I'm a simple man, okay? In no universe that I live in does a sponsorship involve me giving you money. So, like, even if you like a sponsorship, you giving me a discount code on whatever it is you're doing, isn't a sponsorship. And so, obviously you can tell, if you can't tell, this is ammo. We had somebody reach out, and then again, it's no one you're going to know. It's no one, I'm not putting anybody on blast, but a guy reached out. He's very respectful. He's very, very respectful. And he may be listening right now. And the first thing he said really impressed me. And I guess if I say this publicly, I'm kind of tipping my hand, but he reached out, and first thing he said was, do I feel like a sponsorship would be, he asked me if I was basically ethically okay with a possibility of a sponsorship for John 1911. And just the fact that he asked that question is a pretty good sign to me, because, we're not gear reviewers. We're not a lot of things. And, and it's important to say gear reviewer, because I think a lot, and I'm going to go off on a segue here, but this is important. So gear reviewers, look, a lot of people on the internet, it's become, in our space, it's become popular to whack the gear reviewers. Okay. They all pop up with the new guns, and they have these relationships and do all this and do all that. And that is all true. Okay. And I don't know how the relationships work, or if there's an exchange of some value. I don't even want to get into what that is. I don't really know how any of that works. It's none of my business. But I can tell you this, if you are in a relationship like this with a company and they expect a review, that's work. And so, you have to do what that sponsor wants. You need to produce the content that sponsor needs. Even if that sponsor, is like, well, no, give us an honest review. Like, do you like our product? Does it work? Does it not work? Does it whatever? What do you think? We don't want you to lie or even imply that you're lying. But, the thing is, what a lot of people don't understand, I think sponsors are not understanding, and definitely the listener, you, the gun community, gun channel person, doesn't understand. That is something, having to do that or deal with a product or put up or, give credit or, put links or, filming something and then turn to the camera and go, this episode is brought to you by Joe Schmo ammo product and blah, 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 blah. That's work. That has to be filmed. It has to be put in all the content has to be, put in all the things. And even if you are willing to do something with us, it still has to be worth my time, because I have to because our policy is, our motto is, shooting guns and having fun. And so, instead of doing what I want to do or what we need to do or what we have to do, I now have to focus on what we need to do for you. And that becomes, not only is it something we have to do, we have to remember to not forget to do it. We have to make sure it's done right. And we have to make sure it meets, if you have art or you have links or you have this, whatever it is you want, that's something that we have to track. And I have to have that in my queue, and I have to have it ready, to put it in content or do whatever. So there's a fair amount of work. And so there's a balance for me when I'm making decisions on these kinds of things. For example, on ammo, it's like, well, if I can buy a case of ammo and do whatever the F I want, versus somebody who gives me a case of ammo and now I have to tap dance to the Gregory Hines song. Most of you won't even know who that guy is. He's dead. I'd rather just fucking do what I want. I do what I want. We built the John 911 range. We have the armory. We do what we want. Okay. And so, okay. But this person, reached out, talked about some ethics and it kind of hit me from a good spot. So I responded to the guy. And then it quickly turned into somehow me still having to give you money. And, it kind of was like, well, number one, sponsorship is not going to, in any way, is going to involve me giving you money. So that's probably why I don't have sponsors. Number two, I think a lot of these micro businesses that want to deal with influencers, there are people out there that are so thirsty for attention. They're so thirsty for the relationship. They're so thirsty, and I use the word thirsty specifically, for any kind of acknowledgement, that they will just agree to, have any kind of relationship just to somehow validate them. And, trade secret here on John 19:11, why we last so long is we really don't need validation from anybody, because we're doing this anyway. That's our ultimate power. So yeah, I'd rather just do what we're going to do. And that's, so I was like, no, it's like, no, I'm not gonna be giving you money to ultimately be a sponsor, because, to get a discount on whatever kind of ammo it was. And so, they inquired like, well, how much ammo do you need? I said, well, just talking me personally, this doesn't count everybody that shoots over here. Myself, and I had to give him a quick rundown, but myself, it's 8 to 12,000 rounds of a 9mm a year, about 900 rounds of precision rifle a year. That's a heavy year for me, like match ammo. And then there was, a few thousand of 5.56, maybe 2 or maybe 3,000. I don't shoot that much 5.56. And, then there's all these sundry, miscellaneous, what I call milsurp calibers, 7.5 French, 6.5 Swede, 8mm Mauser, 30-06, all these, 32 whatever, and these goofy calibers, 7.62 by 54R. You just, because if we pull a gun out of the reference collection, we may only shoot 40 rounds of 8mm in a year. Maybe an entire year we don't shoot any 8mm. But it's like, but we can do what we want, when we want, how we want. We just get the ammo the way we get it. We either buy it with the local police departments, or we just buy it bulk from, one of the large distributors, and, just kind of go from there. So, just, if, appreciate you, but understand, if we are interested in, I'm always interested in an ethical relationship, and I'm interested in, a positive relationship, but also understand we're a lot bigger than you think. And like, giving me a 25% discount on a little bit of ammo isn't even, I'm not, what was the again, I'm showing my age. There was this woman. She was a supermodel. Was it Naomi Campbell? I think it was Naomi Campbell. She's a black woman, and I mean, it kind of really damaged her career. But she said, "I don't even get out of bed for less than $10,000." And it's like, you know what? It's like, I mean, when it comes to ammo sponsorship, it's like I'm not even gonna. I'm not even really interested in deal. I mean, we're just, I mean, us at least 5,000 rounds of ammo. I mean, I don't know what, I mean, unless it's something specialty, like, I don't know what to say. And again, even then it's like, is it worth my time? Cause sometimes it's just easier to buy ammo and do what we want, as opposed to have to do the Gregory Hines dance for you. So anyway, so appreciate you, but whatever. Anyway, this is an updates on things that are going on. Doc has been in Namibia and posting content from his safari. And, safari stuff is always a little, look, it crosses my mind that when I post safari stuff on social media, not our website, because you can't touch us on our website, there might be some kind of blowback or whatever, So I'm always kind of, look, just don't. If I'm going to post safari pictures, I guess I'm not going to put hashtag vegan in it or hashtag PETA, you know what I'm saying? But Doc is, he's in, well, actually right now, because there is a delay between when he stuff he's posting and when he does it. It's usually a couple days. Doc is actually in the air right now and coming back from Namibia, and I will be picking him up tonight at the airport. So we have a few more photographs from the rest of his hunt. He's got, I think, one or two more animals, and then some things he did because he tagged out early, because Doc is a good shooter. I have heard from the outfitter that Doc used in Africa. They get all kinds. They get people that can't shoot, and they were impressed with Doc. They were like, Doc can shoot. I mean, yes, he can. So, again, outfitters, again, if you don't deal in the hunting thing, but every outfitter has this moment where when a client shows up, because I'm sure, like, the driving instructors at the racing schools and whatever, people show up like, I know what I'm doing. Like, oh, I've got all, I can shoot, I can drive, I can do whatever. And you're like, oh fuck. And then, you're trying to keep the, Skip Barber, race car from hitting the wall, or, you've got some animal that either is charging you and you have to, the PH has to shoot it, or worse, has now run off, halfway to freaking South Africa, and you're like, oh shit, we got to track this thing. So, there's a moment, there's a pucker factor, then, that the outfitter in Africa was like, ooh, this Doc guy, he can shoot. So, we'll probably be posting some more stuff on the outfitter, because we've had such interest in it, because they really like the accommodations. And I'm going to tell you this, Doc has had this hunt in the queue since before COVID. I was supposed to go on this hunt with him, and it's just real difficult for me to get away, and COVID knocked this back twice, and so he's gone this time. And Doc does not waste money, so it's not like he's out there throwing gold doubloons like Scrooge McDuck, like one of these, I don't know, like, Teddy Roosevelt safaris that last 30 days and would be like $1 million today. I mean, these are pretty reasonable what Doc is shooting, so, but he actually wants to come on pod and talk about it. So we're going to do that. And, we'll have a few more days of content with Doc and his safari on the website soon. I guess this is getting a little bit into the politics section of the podcast, but it's really more of like the headlines and things that are super topical. So I'm going to hit it at the top. The first thing is, I just saw this today. I guess Tucker Carlson was doing an interview from his cabin somewhere. I think it's in Maine. And basically, through logical reasoning, postulated that the people that are against Trump, they keep ratcheting up things to, more and more and more severely going after him, to the point, and Tucker Carlson made the comment, he made the comment that, this is going to obviously, end with assassination. It's a pretty, that's a pretty shocking comment. But when you think about it, again, logically, and the logic of the people that really hate Trump, you can see how they get there. Because what's happened, we saw some of this, and we see some of this now. I have to be careful here. Not careful. I just want to give equal time. Like I've told the story how I was at the barber shop and there was this new barber weirdo guy, and I was like, okay, I'll go use that guy. And Nancy Pelosi was flying to Taiwan. It was during that, and he made this comment about like, I hope the Chinese, shoot her airplane down. And, it's like, what the fuck? It's like, I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I think she's, she had nice boobs, but, I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's not politically aligned with me at all. And she's a corrupt Washington insider, as a lot of them end up being. And she would do all kinds of stuff to me if she had the power to do it. Okay. So let's get all that out of the way. But I'm an American, and she was the Speaker of the House. And I am so fucking shocked. Like, I'm an American. Like, if somebody were to make a run at the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, when she was Speaker of the House, and I'm there, I guess I'm jumping in front of her to catch that bullet. And it's like, if you're so partisan that you're fucked up in the head that you can't see that, I'm an American butt. There it is, right there. That's a leader of the United States butt. And we've seen a lot, when there's a Democrat in the White House, or Democrats have power, conservatives do it. Well, when there's Republicans in power, or prominent Republicans, liberals do it. And so Tucker Carlson is just simply making the comment that, he's expanding on the comment that the idea, the left has gone so, and really a lot of times the Republican Party, they have gone so crazy about Trump. So crazy. The idea he's Hitler. Like, it's that argument, like, if you could go back in time and stop Hitler, what would you do? Would you stop Hitler? Would you give your life, or would you do this, or would you do that? Like, if you went up it to, it's the academic argument. If you could travel back in time, instead of travel back in time and meet Jesus, or traveling back in time to meet John Moses Brown, and be like, why did you do that? Travel back in time, and let's say it's 1927, and Hitler hasn't done anything yet. Okay. Hitler hasn't, no one knows him as, Adolf Hitler in the Third Reich. He's just a low level dude with a weird mustache, and you come up and shoot him in the head. It's murder. Okay. But, the academic argument, would you go back in time to stop Hitler? If you had the opportunity, you knew, to stop Hitler from doing, like, basically setting the world on fire and killing millions, responsible for the death of millions of people, and millions of, Jews and, quote, undesirables, according to the Nazis, and you can make a logical, rational, transactional argument about, all of that, and how, would change history. But, when you hang that kind of stuff, when you start telling yourself, liberals, that Donald Trump is Hitler, if you truly believe that, the problem is you start justifying worse and worse and worse behavior to do things because you think you're morally right. Okay? And all Tucker Carlson was saying is, this is going into, this is getting into crazy town, and there's probably going to be, maybe something will happen to Trump. I hope not. And if this turns out to be true, like, heaven fucking forbid, this, like, something does happen. And, I hate to say this, things are so jacked up politically right now. Donald Trump is 78 years old. Okay. And he, look, the dude plays golf, and he's pretty active for his age, but he's not, I would not call a super healthy 78-year-old. He's, he's an okay 78-year-old. But, if he drops dead from a heart attack, there will be an X amount of people. I don't know what X is, but there will be X amount of people that no matter what happens, they will say they poisoned him or they killed him or they did this or they did that. They won't, he just won't, everything is a conspiracy theory. And if everything is a conspiracy theory, then you can justify coming up with crazy ideas and you just justify crazy behaviors because you're like, well, it's all conspiracy theory. And it's just like, Tucker was just taking that to the logical end. And actually, on another thing that I was talking about, it's kind of like on this, and it kind of goes into the politics section. Cheryl Hines, she's an actress. You may recognize her from, I don't watch a lot of TV, so I do apologize. But Cheryl Hines, she's, is it the TV show was Sofia Vergara, and she's the wife of like the nerdy neighbor, and Sofia Vergara is the wife of the Al Bundy guy. He's not Al Bundy in the show, but Cheryl Hines is, I believe that's Cheryl Hines. Well, she's married to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't think a lot of people know that she's married to RFK, and RFK. I know RFK appeals to a lot of said some things that appeal to a lot of people, and RFK has said some things that, talking about the CDC and talking about Fauci and talking about how, having some legitimate questions about vaccines and all this other kind of stuff. That's all fine. I mean, yeah, like we should have these conversations. I support that. I'm not taking any more of these vaccines. But a lot of stuff that RFK says, when you really get into the things he says and he believes in, he and I part company on. I'm like, oh, dude, come on, fuck. But neither here nor there, but talking about Trump, okay? Cheryl Hines has come out, his wife, and she has said she would like her husband, who's now become prominent in possibly running for president on the Democratic side, to get Secret Service protection. And the rules are, the standard is when you become the nominee, you get Secret Service protection. But then there's the new standard where it's called, it's kind of the RFK rule, Robert F. Kennedy, because Robert F. Kennedy, brief history lesson. Robert F. Kennedy, which is John F. Kennedy's brother, was assassinated at a hotel, cut through a kitchen at a political event by Sirhan Sirhan. I did not study for this. This is off the top of my head. And he didn't have Secret Service protection because he wasn't the candidate from a leading party. So as political people get to be more and more prominent, we're starting to give them some details. They don't get presidential level protection because I don't think people appreciate how much that costs and how big that is. But, they're giving, major candidates from major parties or prominent people Secret Service protection. And, RFK has not really quite met that standard. However, RFK Jr., he is RFK Jr., and there's a lot of crazy people in the world. And, there's crazy people that would come after Trump. And there's crazy people that could come after RFK. And, I don't know this. Look, I'm not the Secret Service. I don't have access to Secret Service stuff. I don't have access to there's a special unit LAPD has for their celebrity. Not the Bunko Squad. I just love the word Bunko. They have I don't know. It's not VIP. Maybe it's special threat protection or special threat unit. Maybe it's just the threat unit. They may have watered it down, but there's an entire division at the Los Angeles Police Department that just specializes in security for celebrities, like serious stalkers and serious things, because they've had all these problems. And so, Cheryl Hines, she's a pretty accomplished actress. She's married to RFK Jr. He's running for president. I think. And, all these people know who he is, and she's requesting, Secret Service protection. And I don't know, like, I think if I had, access to the threat unit files and maybe the Secret Service files, be like, is there anybody out there that doesn't like Cheryl Hines and RFK Jr.? I don't know. They may be like, well, take a look at this folder. I'd be like, holy fucking shitballs, and it's like, things are so crazy anymore. It's something to consider, and we don't put crazy people in jail. Like there was, I don't know how I get in this tangent, but Michael Jackson. Okay, what the Michael Jackson guy. He's got kids. One of his kids is named Paris Jackson. Paris is a girl. It's actually kind of a pretty girl. I guess I don't know what she does other than be like Michael Jackson's daughter. She's like everywhere, like in all because she has money. And I guess she might perform or sing or do something, but she's a child that's grown up in a public eye and just does what she does. I mean, and she's not Taylor Swift, okay? She's not even old ass Madonna. She's Paris Jackson, okay? And she's got a guy. They had just filed a protection order against a guy that they have caught that has been stalking her since 2019. They just caught him again. He's climbing the walls to her neighborhood, peeping into her door, literally peeping into her windows. And it's like, okay, well, what does this have to do with Cheryl Hines and RFK Jr.? What does this have to do with Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson? It has everything to do with it. As a matter of fact, it has everything to do with most of the mass shootings we have in this country. We do not put crazy people in fucking jail. We don't put them in hospitals. We don't put them in jails until they commit a serious crime, until they catch a felony and end up in prison. And, it used to be a time like if Cheryl Hines and RFK Jr. have somebody, look, I'm not going to slander anybody, so I'll slander myself. Let's say I was obsessed with Cheryl Hines and RFK Jr. I'm not the biggest fan of everything he's ever said. He's got some issues there. I think most people don't really know of his issues, but so let's say I kind of go off the deep end. I don't know. I see him in a restaurant, he and his wife, and I'm like, F you, and I make a big old scene, and maybe the cops are called, and maybe I went too far. Okay, it's fine. It's like, it was ugly, I apologize, whatever, it's fine. But then I show up someplace else where they're at on purpose, and I show up again. At what point do I need to be arrested and we have a trial? And the trial isn't me bothering RFK Jr. The trial isn't me disturbing the peace. The trial is mentally adjudicating me to see if I'm fucking crazy. And then here's what you do. You get to the point where you have to mentally adjudicate me. And then, even if you find me competent, okay, you're like, well, Marky, yeah, you would find you competent, and you're compos mentis, and whatever. P.S. If we have to arrest you one more time, bothering these people, now that we had to have a hearing, whether you're, because it's the real red flag is mental competency. Let's have a trial. Let's see if you're mentally competent and adjudicate it in court, and we have to have a court hearing to determine whether you're competent or not. It's like, motherfucker, if you show up at these assholes' house again, it's 10 goddamn years. But see, we don't do that. And so crazy people get to run around. Yeah, unless maybe you're president, and then, or maybe a high level of Congress, the FBI run around and scoop up a bunch of people. But, if you're mentally disturbed, you just get to, bounce off the walls like a ping pong ball until you finally make contact with somebody. So, yeah, I hope Tucker Carlson is wrong. If he ends up being right, I mean, shit's going to get turned up to 11. And this is, again, going back to the barbershop, I'm an American, the Speaker of the House is the Speaker of the House. I'm an American. The president is my, unfortunately, Joe Biden is my president. I'm an American. That's it. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a pinko. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a softie. I'm not this. I'm not all kinds of bullshit. He's president of the United States. I'm an American. That's a settled issue. Wishing ill on your political enemies is banana republic crazy bullshit. And, I'm not down for that. I don't like to associate with people that do that. But I'm also intellectually honest, and I'm about holding people accountable for their personal behavior. The people that could bother RFK Jr., the people that could bother Madonna constantly, the people that bother Donald Trump constantly, the people that bother Taylor Swift constantly. There's people out there that they are broken ass people, and we need to start putting them on community control. Okay? They can, have to go in and see doctors every week and, see if they need to have their levels checked. And, maybe if they have to have ankle monitors, maybe they have to go in to see therapy once a month. We have all kinds of levels of community control, but we don't have to let crazy people run around and kill our celebrities and kill our politicians and, and have these crazy mass shootings. It's all related. It's all the same problem. And the whole red flag thing is like, I'm not for red flag laws. I'm not for red flag laws. Because that's not, of course, number one, I would never be for a red flag law. Because a red flag law doesn't solve the problem. A red flag law is just giving somebody authority over your civil rights. Mentally adjudicate crazy people in court. You know what I'm for? I guess, man, we don't have, the court systems are backed up. Yeah. Hippies like to spend money on government. Maybe we should have 3 more judges. Maybe every major city in the country should have 3 mental health judges. And, hey, we're in common pleas and we got this one case. We're going to kick this one down to you. And we're going to see if we're going to have a competency hearing on this guy. We're going to have we're going to have mentally adjudicated. And then this person and with their defense team and, however they want to put their defense we will make the case, all the crazy shit you do, and you will be given a chance to prove that you're not crazy. And we'll have a trial. And, in our system of justice, this is how it works. You don't give somebody rights to just red flag. The whole red flag thing is so ridiculous. Okay. Because, what it is they just somebody wants to be like, ooh, you can't do this, but nobody wants to put the work in to deal with somebody. The fundamental problem with red flagging isn't somebody taking my guns away. Okay. Like, the sheriff of this county doesn't like Marky because he said something in John 19:11. The fundamental problem with red flagging is if I'm using myself because I don't want to slander people, and hopefully this never comes back to bite me. Like, I don't anything crazy, but the issue isn't taking my guns away. I mean, trust me, that's an issue because that's my whole life. The issue is if I'm so crazy that you need to take my guns away, why am I still walking around amongst us? You see my point? If you're so crazy that person doesn't need to have guns, I don't want them going to the hardware store. I don't want them having keys to cars. I don't want them being able to go to the Tractor Supply. And the only way to do that is just, you know what? Yeah, you may be on some kind of community control. You're not well. You're not well. You're under the influence all the time. You're strung out on dope. You're sleeping on a park bench. Again, the park bench, it's the same spectrum, the same problem. Threats against Donald Trump and the people sleeping on the park bench or sleeping under bridges and the mass shooters, it's the same problem. There is no reason why people need to be sleeping under bridges in America. Okay? We can mentally adjudicate these people and we can put them on community control and we can create a whole new system of, either inpatient and or outpatient, and people can have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, depending on how well they're doing, of community control in this country. So, the only option isn't basically freedom or death row, because that's what we do right now, and whether, until there's another attack or there's another political assassination, or there's another actress in Hollywood that opens up her door and gets blown away, like the girl I think that worked on the Mork and Mindy show years ago, which none of you will know who that is. So anyway, yeah, the Tucker Carlson comment was way deeper than just Donald Trump. And okay, and you know what? And that we're gonna get to, I got one more, and we're gonna get to the fun stuff. Everyone's talking about Oliver Anthony, pretty interesting guy, being a child of Virginia and West Virginia, Western Virginia, so the mountains in Virginia. So like Mercer County, Tazewell County, if you know where that is. Everyone's all hyper about Oliver Anthony, the guy. I can't remember the name of the song, but he's got a bunch of songs. Your dollar ain't shit, it's tax to no end. Whatever. Hey, fun fact, surprising. Apparently, he's very tall. He's like 6'3". Did not know that. Didn't see that one coming. But I guess there's been some blips with him because his song got real popular, and it's interesting. Politicians can't help themselves. All the politicians, there's a lot of things that are said in the political news today that are so bass-ackwards, but what people say and they assume it's like, well, this is true because I said it's true. And everyone's like, well, this is the way it is. The first one is that, Oliver Anthony really lives in Virginia. He lives kind of in what I call middle Virginia. He doesn't really live in the mountains of Virginia. He lives, like, I looked kind of where he was at. Almost, not the Tidewater, but like middle Virginia. He doesn't live in the mountain areas. But people like the idea that, Republicans are just like, this song is about us and it's against the Democrats. It's like, okay, all right, I can see that. Okay. I mean, they played the song at the president or at the Republican debates. And it's like, that was kind of weird. And then, people find out that Oliver Anthony, maybe he isn't as conservative as they would have liked. And he seems pretty conservative to me. But again, here's another thing. The media will tell you, listener, if you're anywhere but Virginia or what I really call West Virginia, that, Donald Trump, that West Virginia is a Republican state. And that Virginia's, like rural Virginia's Republican state. And it's like, okay, that's I find that statement very interesting as somebody who grew up there as a child, because, and I still go back there. Well, to say that Republican to me, it's just the only difference is the Democratic Party has gone so far crazy left that they've left these people behind, but they're actually not Republicans. They're more into the, if they're working class. Really, it's a class. Politics in that part of the country, and this is going to come as a shock to a lot of people that are from there. Politics in that part of the country are like from 50 years ago, and political divisions are typically determined by class, not by ideology. Basically, rich people are Republicans. Business owners are Republicans. People, those are Republicans. And then the working guy are the Democrats. And then the Republicans and the business owners are trying to do whatever they can to keep, abuse the Democratic workers. Okay. And that is, even though Donald Trump is still the biggest thing going in that part of the country, that's not actually Republican. Okay. And so, a lot of people, I guess they get upset with Oliver Anthony because he kind of told him to back off a little bit. Like, don't pigeonhole me. Again, number one, it's smart business, but number two, he probably doesn't. He just wants to sing his songs and do whatever. But also, I want you to think about something for a minute. If you, as the listener, as a consumer, of another form of entertainment, because Oliver Anthony is an entertainer. He writes songs, Dance for My Little Man Dance. He's, strumming his guitar, working all day, singing his songs for bullshit pay, right? It's just a goddamn song, all right? And if you are so hell-bent on him being whatever you kind of Republican, conservative, fire-breathing, right-wing person that you want him to be, which is your right, that you're cool, that's fine. But then you turned around and you bitched and moaned about every time somebody at a fucking football game got on their goddamn knees or did all these political statements. I got bad news for you. You're a fucking hypocrite, because you're doing the same thing that you complained about them doing. And I'm calling you out on your bullshit. And a lot of this stuff is a little bit more complicated. People are allowed to have their opinions. I'm not saying Oliver Anthony is some liberal. I don't think he is. Oliver Anthony and I are probably very similar people. Probably, I don't know where we would deviate. I'm not a Jerry Falwell conservative, I'll tell you that. So does it mean I hate Oliver Anthony or I hate Jerry Falwell? No, I don't. I try not to hate anybody. I'm a person who thinks, I don't like Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Barack Obama, but I'd take a bullet for him. As an American, I'd have to. It's like, you need at home to chill out a little bit, because the media and Fox News did this by playing that stupid ass song on that fucking debate stage. Okay. This is an example of Fox News doing this. Okay. Because songs can mean whatever they want to mean to you. It comes out of your computer or your iPhone and you're like, man, wow, it just really hits me hard. Okay. And whatever that means, wherever you are in your life. Okay. But when Fox News puts that bullshit up on television and now everybody has to stake out a position, right or left or whatever, because I got news for you. See, here's the thing. This didn't get reported, but Democrats did the same thing that Republicans are doing. Who's the Democrat senator from, I think he's from, is it from Connecticut? The one who lied about serving in Vietnam, the Marine? I think it was him. I see his face. When that song was blowing up, like within the first couple of days, like 48 hours, I think it was on Twitter, put some comment out about how, again, he's a Democrat and he's like, yeah, we gotta, think about the working guy and doing whatever, but he's a Democrat. And, he's trying to get on the coattails of it as well. And so I'm just saying, don't project your problems onto other people's activities. It's the road straight to hell, and it ruins everything. And if you ever even had a negative opinion of professional sports and inserting politics into it, or, a singer, coming up and saying, saying shit about, against Donald Trump when he was running for election or re-election, Taylor Swift. But then, you want Oliver Anthony to be on your team. You're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. And the media thrives on the hypocrisy for ratings. They're using you. They're manipulating you. Don't fall for it. It's making you miserable so they can make money. Okay, on the more gun. Let's get on to some gun stuff. I'm off. I'm over it. So somebody reached out and wanted to know my opinion on the full stroke commander, and I'm literally like, what the hell is a full stroke commander? I have never heard of this. And I guess this is one of the benefits of kind of backing away from like all the forums, years ago. Apparently, I don't really know what the motivation is for full stroke commander. I assumed it was a commander that was modified so it would make sure it would open up all the way with shock buffs. I'm guessing. There's some tricks you can do to modify the guns and make them open to slide farther back. But I guess a full stroke commander isn't that. Maybe it is, but then because that'll leave a gap. The trick is it could leave a little bit of a gap in your dust cover on your slide. So if I understand it correctly, because again, I don't really care. I guess people are then that now make sure dust cover on the frame longer to fill that gap. And so now you're getting outside the parameters of what a commander holster should fit like, because you now have this full stroke commander. And my response is, now y'all know why I run 5-inch 1911s. Okay? If you want a gun that strokes like a service pistol, buy the 5-inch model. All right? I'm sure there's some technical detail of this full stroke commander thing that I don't know. But a lot of times, these are the kind of arguments made by 1911 people that don't shoot. They buy guns, they don't really shoot them, or they don't do anything with them or accomplish anything. The biggest accomplishment they ever do is having it. And so it's like, whatever. It's like, I'm not not that big of into it. And speaking of whatever, man, it's gonna sound negative, and I'm not negative. I swear, I'm not in a bad mood. I'm actually in a good mood. But I think I've said this before, and there's two there. I almost don't even want to say this. So Cabot guns, they do the real gaudy gauche. There's a 50-cent word for it. They do the real gaudy gauche 1911s. Some of them are like crazy, and they're expensive. There's a dealer here in Cincinnati, in the greater Cincinnati area, that is actually probably one of the biggest sellers of those guns. And, it's free country. Look, they're not my boat. It's a free country. You can buy what you want. These guns are crazy expensive. I don't know, $11,000, $15,000, whatever they do. Like, they make guns out of meteorites and do all this stuff. The meteorite idea was kind of cool. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every gun that Cabot has ever made, I think, is ugly. Because there's been a few that I've seen that are like, oh, that's kind of an interesting looking gun. I don't know. Like, so there's always going to be something. There's no blanket statements. But with that being said, every time I see one of these gaudy ass Cabot guns, typically have like a GI style slide stop, which I'm like, what are you doing here? Well, I know what you're doing because it's guns that people don't shoot. I see one of these gaudy ass guns. Literally, I think back as a child, and I used to see these on television. I think it was Time Life. And Time Life would do commemorative collector plates, like dinner plates. And I remember they did one, and it was like Elvis Presley. And so, it had the picture, Elvis Presley's picture. So you display these plates. I guess you wouldn't eat off of them. And so, like young Elvis and Elvis in the army, and then, Elvis, I don't know, like at his heyday, and then maybe Elvis, whatever, maybe with his wife or whatever the girl thing is, and then, Elvis in the zoot suit and the big collar and, strung out on angel dust or whatever dope he was on, in Vegas. And so this would be a panorama of collector plates. And every time I see one of these Cabot guns, I think of those Elvis collector plates. And I'm like, it's like art, you buy it because you want it, which is fine. You buy it because it speaks to you. Don't buy these guns. In my opinion, I could be wrong. Don't buy these guns if some kind of investment, or even if you're going to hold their value, like this gun's $11,000. And like there was one released recently. I don't even know what it was. It could have been $25,000 for all I know. And it's just like, well, you paid $25,000 for it. It doesn't mean anyone else is going to pay $25,000 for it. Whatever you pay for, let's say it's $11,000. Whatever you paid for this gun, it's like, I mean, all right, I don't even know what the hell we're doing here. Like these are not, this isn't real. They're anything that's mass produced to be collectible is not collectible. Okay. And, I don't know. There's a plane flying over. I don't know if you guys can hear that motor or not. It's a private plane, but I don't know what to tell you. It's a brand that I don't pay attention to. Most of their guns I'm not really interested in. I mean, it kind of gets to a point in life where if you're a performance-based shooter like 1911s, that's why I don't really associate with a lot of 1911 people, because they don't really shoot. They buy guns because it's easy to buy a gun, but they don't shoot. They can't shoot well, and they can't shoot to any kind of standard. And so I don't have a lot in common with these people, because, I think guns should get worn out. I think guns should be rode hard and put up wet. I think guns, I think you should shoot a barrel out of a gun and have to put a new barrel in it. Like that's my jam. I want to do stuff in life. I don't want to be the dude with the biggest pile of Time Life Cabot guns, at my estate, so y'all can pay half price of what I paid for them. So that's what I think of the Cabot guns. 10 millimeter 1911s. Fun fact, because I can say this, it's not like it's, I don't like to say guns that we're looking to buy, because people will go out and buy them and run up the prices. But there's so many of these. We are in the market for a 10 millimeter 1911, a 5-inch model. And, what that would be or what it would look like, I have no idea. And I'm aware, I've met this breed of cat before, that, there's the 10 millimeter people. There are 10 millimeter people who come in, and they're just, it's like a cult, it's like Taylor Swift people, or Ariana Little Grande kids, or little ponytails. Like they're the Dave Matthews Band. It's their own little thing, or the Grateful Dead, and they just travel around as a group, and, they know their own code, and they do their own thing, and they believe what they believe. It's their little religion, but the reality is, objectively speaking, 10 millimeter 1911s don't generally run that well. Now, full disclosure, 10 millimeter 1911s don't really run that well. 40 caliber 1911s really don't run well, and we've got one that runs. So it's like, well, now I'd like to have a 5-inch 10 millimeter. I don't really want a 6. I want a 5. Again, I like 5-inch guns. Kind of all the same. Like a 6-inch 10 millimeter means, like, I understand the argument ballistically for a 6-inch 10 millimeter or a long slide 10 millimeter. I get it, but that's not what I'm trying to do with 1911s. Like, I want the same goddamn holster for, it's a system, right? So, 10 millimeter, I get it, but when you really get down the brass tacks and the 10 millimeter guys, they don't shoot 10 millimeter. They do. They say they do. They think they do. And, and they'll be, I'm making these up, but just to prove a point. Like, they'll be their Winchester white box 10 millimeter. I doubt Winchester even has that. But they'll be their Winchester white box equivalent of 10 millimeter. And then they'll be their real 10 millimeter. And it's like, none of that shit's real 10 millimeter, first of all. Even the hot shit is really just kind of like FBI 10 millimeter, which is like, the super hot 40. Real hot shit Norma 10 millimeter. Most people have never, ever shot that. It's a thumper. And most 10 millimeter guys that are big advocates, let me put it this way. I have never, ever, ever, ever met a 10 millimeter guy that's shooting like 12,000 rounds a year, or 8,000, or even, like they're doing stuff with their 10 millimeter. They're shooting to a standard, they're shooting of this or shooting of that. Most 10 millimeter guys, at best, they're good plinkers, because, you can set the gun up and, put the gun out. They don't even push the gun. A lot of them just raise the gun up. They don't even push the gun out. And so, because they can't draw from holster. And so, they'll put the gun out there, and they can shoot a pop can, and, maybe they can shoot a deer. And it's like, All right, that's fine, but that's not real. That's not pistol shooting to me. That's not where the glory is. And so but the 10 millimeter guys are more into the fetish, and so they plink, and then they'll shoot a pop can and be like, oh yeah, this is so much power. And it's like, all right, yeah, whatever. You really, I mean, like, you really can't shoot. Like, I mean, you can shoot by your grandpa standards, but you really can't shoot. And so, and 10 millimeter, even regular 10 millimeter will just randomly break guns, and real 10 millimeter will actually really break guns. And so it's like, if you want to be a 10 millimeter guy, and we're going to get a 10 millimeter, I mean, just at any time you pull that trigger, just be prepared for something to break on that gun. If what was it? James, don't take my word for it. Take James Yeager's word for it. Go out there. There's a video from James Yeager, peace be upon him, talking about why 40 sucks. And he was right. He was James was way ahead of the time. Where I worked, they all said 40 sucked too. I didn't really have an opinion on it. But one thing he said, and I thought it was interesting, is he said the 40 Smith & Wesson. You know what the industry guys call 40 Smith & Wesson? And rhetorically, because it's on video, and he says they call it the 40 Smith and Breaker because it breaks guns, because it's a higher pressure round, it's a bigger round, and it breaks guns. And everyone knows 40 Smith and Wesson high volume will break down much sooner than 9mm. This is not debated. Okay, this is accepted as reality. It will wear the gun out faster. Okay, you want to say break, wear stuff out faster. In whatever term that means to you, that's fine. Real 10 millimeter is going to be worse than 40. And no one talks about that because the dudes that shoot 10 millimeter don't shoot that much. And speaking of not shooting that much, there was an ad on one of the gun forums that allows the sale of, I'm not going to say that. There was an ad on a gun forum for a 1911 from Les Bear. And I thought this was real. I thought this was really telling. A little bit. It's like, you got to release the guy, appreciate that maybe he's telling the truth. But then when you think about the fact that people that don't log rounds always guess high on how many rounds they've actually shot, they actually shoot a year, you're like, man, what if he's guessing really high on this? So just hear me out. So this guy has a Les Bear pistol. I don't remember what it is. It might have been a Thunder Ranch. I don't remember. It wasn't like a crazy expensive gun. Les Bear pistol, I think it's probably 45. And it had to have been. And so this gun was made in 2002. Mind you, it's 2023. So this gun is 21 years old. All right? It's a 21-year-old gun. And it looked like it was in good shape. And this guy, his ad, he's like, he's a professed 1911, like if you ask that guy, like he's oh, fuck yeah, I'm a shooter. I can fucking do anything with a 1911. I can do this. I can do that. I'm a 1911 guy and all the virtues of 1911, whatever. Okay? Fine. Again, I get it. That's totally fine. His gun's for sale. It's priced pretty well. It's 21 years old. His estimated round count. This isn't me. This is him. His estimated round count is 800 to 900 rounds. 800 to 900 rounds in 21 years. And people, this is why I recommend used guns. Most people don't shoot. You see a used gun that's been shot a lot, it'll be obvious. I mean, it won't be like, man, you think this, you're not going to pick up a used gun and have to hand it to someone else. Like, man, do you think this gun's not a pistol? Like, do you think this gun's been shot a lot? It'll be pretty obvious if it's been shot a lot. I mean, 800 to 900 rounds by my standards. And I don't like to use the word break-in because, again, that's another thing that these people will harp on. 800 to 900 rounds, to me, is a new gun. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I was doing yesterday, like, they're doubles, but it's not to do a double. I was doing doubles doing doubles just to practice, how to hold my grip and as fast as I can. And I want the red dot to return to the same spot because I'm trying to work on, just, not stay tuned up on pistols. And in this set, I did maybe a little bit of plate ride work, but it was 95% just doubles. That's all I did. I did a little weekend shooting, a little bit of plate rack, not much. And it was just one session. It was yesterday. I have to look at the logs. Was it? Well, it's 380 round or yeah, 380 rounds. 380 rounds, and it's like, no, I'm sorry. It was 100. It was 180 rounds. It was 180. Yeah, 18 rounds. 18 rounds per magazine. 10 magazines, and it was 180 rounds. And it's like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I've done enough. And, it wasn't like 5 minutes. Like, you practice, you set up, you get a timer, you spray paint the target, like getting too much, like keep it in A zone, do this, do that, however you want to set these up. It's thoughtful, accomplished practice. 180 rounds. This dude's got 800 to 900 rounds in his gun in 21 years. And what if he's one of the guys that, you get these guys that, they shoot 150 rounds. Or maybe they have the one time that they shoot 400 rounds or 500 rounds with the one time. And then, how many years back? And they start thinking that they'll shoot 500 rounds. I bet I shoot 1,000 rounds a year. I bet I shoot at least 500 rounds a year. And, they'll guess the years. And I'm like, I've got 8,000 rounds for this gun or 6,000 rounds for this gun. And you're like, there's some years they don't shoot at all. They're so delusional. And it's just like this. That's why I really don't. I'm a gun guy and I'm a pistol guy, but I'm not like one of these in the club kind of guys. I'm out there shooting. So anyway, I saw that gun and the Les Bear, 21 years old, 900 rounds. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for the guy. Okay, let's get a little bit of pop culture, then we'll get into the police blotter. We'll go ahead and call it. Y'all don't want to hear me for, much more in an hour, right? So, an interesting article popped up in the news feed, and I just, as I get older, I mean, I don't need to know any of this yet, but hopefully, you never know the future, right? There's the Hugh Hefner's wife, his last wife. What was her name? Crystal, maybe. She's writing a book, and her book says, one of the things she had in her book was, she said that Hugh Hefner took so much Viagra that it made him deaf. And I was like, fuck, is that a thing? Like, I didn't know. Is that a thing? And then I'm thinking about, remember when Rush Limbaugh went deaf? And I was like, man, like, I don't know. Like, you tell me, like, give me podcast at john911.com. Can you take enough Viagra to make you deaf? Like, can you take anything to make you deaf? Like, I did not know that. So, I thought that was interesting. This is a little bit old, but it was a fight that happened, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. And I was disappointed with the decision, but it's a boxing match, and I was really rooting for Nate to give the old Long Beach slap to Jake Paul. But the decision didn't go the way I wanted, but it was fun. He got paid. Everyone got paid. I'm not a fan of Jake Paul at all, cause I guess I'm old, but I was rooting for Nate and I was disappointed. Okay, police blotter. Let's get out of this. You're almost at the end. You've almost made it, I promise. So, first one is out of Florida. I thought this was really interesting. There's a PhD chemistry grad. He's not a student, he's a grad. He graduated. He looked Asian to me, and I guess the victims of his crime they might have been Indian. But basically what was happening was they lived in these apartments in Florida, and I think a family of this Indian family moved in above him in these apartments, and he had gotten frustrated with the noise. I guess in particular, in particular Lee, he was frustrated with the toilet. I guess they were slamming the toilet up above him, and he'd fixated on this. And so what he started doing is, he's a chemistry guy, and so he started getting all these. He has access to all kinds of crazy stuff. Look, I'm not surprised. Like, we're gun guys. Gun guys working in the gun industry. We have access to all kinds of things. When was the last time you pulled out a crazy gun and a non-gun person goes, "Oh my God, is that legal?" You're like, "Oh yeah, it is." Well, I'm sure there's the equivalent in the chemistry lab. Like, "Oh my God, is that legal? Like that controlled whatever substance?" Or, well, sure it is, because we use it to, like whatever testing they do on mice or the aliens at Area 51. So this guy, what he was doing, some kind of, maybe it was a narcotic, some kind of chemical. And what he was doing is he was sneaking. He's this passive aggressive, kind of like, this is like an incel kind of thing to me. He was, and this is a grown ass man too. Like, I don't know how old this PhD chemistry guy is, but he's not 20. Okay. It's probably closer to 30. He would sneak up and he would take a syringe and he would shoot something either into the door jamb or under the door, but essentially he was committing biological chemical warfare and on his neighbors upstairs. This real passive aggressive weird shit. Like, they were getting sick. They were, like, I think their baby, like, they had a young baby, and like the baby's hair was falling out, and they got their apartment tested for all that. It's a terrible story. But what finally happened was the guy got suspicious. Maybe he had smelled something one day coming through his door. And so he decided to set up a camera to watch his front door. And he caught the guy on camera doing it, because they didn't even realize what it was. They didn't, like, he just like, what is going on here? So he set up a camera, and voila, they caught the guy on camera. And, I don't know if the guy's going to get deported to China or even what his status is, but, thought that was interesting. Chicago, there was a woman at a White Sox game, and she suffered a gunshot wound. I think in her stomach. She suffered a gunshot wound, and had to be treated and evacuated from this baseball game. And it's like, well, but there's metal detectors and there's all the stuff. I don't know I don't know if the game was at a home game or an away game. I think it was a home game, a White Sox game at home. And so, how'd she get the gun in through the metal detectors? Well, apparently she's fat. Well, how fat is she? She's fat enough that she could stick a gun into the folds of her belly and got it through the metal detector. So apparently what happened was she lumbered her big old ass up through these metal detectors, and something was going beep, beep, beep. And she's so big, they're like, yeah, you're fine. I mean, I don't know what maybe she's like, I had lipo band surgery, or who knows what she told them, but something was going beep, beep, beep. And they're like, yeah, you're fine. And so she had some gun. Now, mind you, she, in her defense, she denies all of this, but apparently they've got surveillance of her going through the metal detector, setting off the metal detector, she being let through the metal detector. So she was somewhere sitting, doing something, engaging in some activity. It's not clear to me if she was messing with the gun or if the gun just went off. Their reports are still sketchy. We don't believe it was a SIG P320, but preliminary reports are first reports are almost always wrong. Could have been a 320, could have been a Glock. We know it wasn't a 1911. I'm just kidding. And we don't know what the hell it was. It's probably, out in real world, it's probably a fucking high point. But anyway, this is like the first, you hear, like, look, I've been in this game a long time, and I've heard, the guy that shoves the gun in his waistband, and, like, there was the famous, one of the athletes, he was at a club wearing sweatpants. It's like, man, you got a lot of pull. You can pull off the sweatpants in the club. I can never pull off sweatpants in a club. But then, like, his Glock went down his pants, and he went to grab it and shot himself. And you hear these stories of people shoving guns in their pants, typically striker-fired pistols, and they shoot themselves. I have never, ever, ever heard of a fat person hiding a gun in a fat fold. And, I've never done intake processing at a prison either. So and you're thinking, well, that's gotta be the best story of the police blotter. Oh no. You would be wrong. It comes out of United Kingdom. There were some farmers out in rural England, or the UK somewhere. I don't know where they're in, England and Wales or Scotland, wherever they are. So they're in the UK somewhere. And for some reason that's not really clear, they felt like something was wrong with some of their cows. They're like, cows had a rough night. Like, what's going on with old Betsy over there? Like, oh man, she's kind of walking funny or whatever. And this was like, there were things going on that the farmers were like, what's going on with the cows? I don't know what's going on with the cows. Like, something's going on with the cows. You know, they're farmers, so they put an alarm system in with cameras at their cattle barn. And one night, ding dong, alarms going off. They come running over. And what do they find in the cattle barn? They find a gentleman named Liam Brown, and Liam Brown was having sex with a cow, and that is not alleged because they did a DNA sex swab, a DNA rape kit test on the cow, and confirmed that old Liam was having sex with the cow. Also on video apparently, but they confirmed. So Liam is pled guilty to cow fucking in the UK. We call that bestiality here. I don't know what they call it. They're there in the UK. So yeah, if you thought the fat fold was the top story, nope. The guy having a sex with the cow and having to do the rape kit on the cow. Hopefully the video will be coming to a TikTok account near you soon. Well, this wraps up episode 315 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see more stories or pictures, links, everything we discuss, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good night.